If you ask any young Chinese girl today what's important to her, she's likely to answer becoming a fashion model. Marriage and career are no longer appealing to them. Having the perfect body weight is the dream of every modern Chinese girl.
Every girl knows the truth. Inner beauty is somewhat important. However, most people believe good-looking girls are still more popular.
Chinese social media weight loss contests inspire young female millennials to pay close attention to their weight. The contests require them to use printing paper as a way to measure excess body fat.
I always pay attention to my weight. It's important to me. Being on a diet has been my favorite choice to avoid gaining extra weight.
Many Chinese girls go on diets to attract or keep boyfriends. Some fear their boyfriends might compare them to other slimmer girls. Japan was the first Asian country to report an increase in eating disorders among millennials. China is now the most recent to report this growing problem. A 2009 study found that eating disorders are prevalent among large Asian countries. Most of them habitually use laxatives to lose weight. The practice is spreading among college women, with 43% of them now identified as at risk for an eating disorder.
Among Christians, few of our sisters in my church are suffering the same problem. We need to remember God's word. Our body is the holy temple. We ought to honor the temple by appreciating our bodies.
This was the scene captured on cell phone video Monday. 47-year-old Charles Kenzie, unarmed, laying on his back, hands raised in the air.
Shut up!
The younger man sitting next to him is autistic and escaped from a nearby facility. Kenzie is his caretaker there.
He has something in his hands. All units use caution. He has something inside of his hands.
Police say they were responding to a 911 call of a man with a gun threatening to commit suicide. An object can clearly be seen in the young man's hand. The object was a toy truck. At some point during the incident, one officer reportedly fires 3 shots, not seen on video, hitting Kenzie once in the upper leg. A second video shows police handcuffing both men. Kenzie is recovering at a local hospital.
I still got my hands in the air. I said, no, I just got shot. And I'm saying to him, I'm like, sir, why did you shoot me? And his words to me, he said, I don't know.
Police Chief Gary Eugene has been on the job less than 2 months.
I want to make it clear, there was no gun recovered.
The officer, a Hispanic male, has been placed on desk duty. Police Union Rep John Rivera.
This is a case where a police officer was trying to save Mr. Kinsley's life, and unfortunately, his shot went astray.
As long as I got my hands up, they're not going to shoot me. This is what I'm thinking. They're not going to shoot me. Wow, was I wrong?
When we have a presumptive positive of THC in our public water, we take that extremely serious, and we're going to investigate that until the end.
Police say the substance may have been introduced into the system at one of the town's 5 water wells, and if so, it looked like it was done on purpose.
There were signs of tamper, forced entry into what would have been the raw water supply.
The presence of THC was discovered by a company that conducts routine employee drug tests, but the results are far from definitive, and samples are on their way to state labs. Still, it's cause for big concern in this small town of more than 700 people.
I was in the grocery store. I was in there about 10 minutes, and in that amount of time, people had rushed in and sold out of the water. This causes a real concern, because if it happens in Hugo, Colorado, it can happen any place.
Colorado law permits the legal sale of medical and recreational marijuana, but counties can decide whether or not to allow it. Hugo, part of Lincoln County, does not contain any commercial pot sale operations, but people can grow restricted amounts at home. For the moment, authorities are simply not sure what they're dealing with.
A federal judge ruled that forcing insurers to include birth control coverage against their religious convictions is unconstitutional. Missouri Senator Paul Whelan and his wife filed a lawsuit arguing being forced to pay for birth control coverage in their state health insurance plan violates their Catholic faith. The lawsuit addresses a section of Obamacare that requires insurers to pay for birth control. The judge ruled the birth control mandate is a unique burden on their religious freedom.
A routine decision parents make, choosing clothing for their kids.
You want to get dressed?
But for Haley Woods and a growing number of parents across the country, they see clothes as an opportunity to help shape their kids. Woods tries to buy gender-neutral clothes, a term that has been gaining popularity.
We really need gender-neutral clothing to start at this age because we're building up on how to start dismantling, sexism and misogyny and all that stuff. And it really does start from this tiny building block.
But creating a unisex wardrobe is challenging. While some big retailers are gradually including more gender-neutral stock or inverting conventions, the options are still limited. Which is why some frustrated parents have started their own small online companies.
Not all, but the newer generation of parents thinks that children shouldn't be limited by their gender.
Courtney Hartman founded Jessie and Jack for babies and toddlers and Free to Be Kids for older children, offering clothes that defy gender norms. Hartman began making t-shirts from her home after seeing the same thing over and over again.
The slogan tees in the boys section of big retailers, you see a lot of words like troublemaker, mommy's little monster, tough like daddy.
It used to be that at least for up through the age of 5 or 6, children were dressed alike.
Clothes that reflected gender stereotypes took hold in the late 1980s, when manufacturers and marketers wanted to boost sales to couples having fewer kids, those parents rebelling against the unisex fashions of their youth.
The market doesn't stay the same all the time. It's not the same parents having babies for 110 years.
Now, the next generation of parents are balking at the so-called pink washing.
I definitely wish I had more options.
Parents looking for more choices to chase away the clothing blues.
Some of the latest images to emerge from the northeastern state of Borno. Islamist group Boko Haram has waged a 7-year insurgency here. It's losing ground, but it's leaving behind a dreadful legacy. And UNICEF says the full extent is only now emerging.
This has been a very silent crisis. The number of people displaced in northern Nigeria or from northeast Nigeria because of the conflict is actually the 3rd biggest displacement crisis in the world, but it's almost a secret. People have not been paying attention to it. There's obviously a lot of competition at the moment in the world for resources.
The Boko Haram troubles have left more than 2 million people needing aid. Almost 250,000 children in Borno are suffering from malnutrition, and 1 in 5 of those could simply starve to death unless help comes soon. But UNICEF says it's still too risky to go in.
Accessibility for security reasons is definitely still one of the problems. Although the territory is no longer controlled by Boko Haram, it's not safe to travel, and there are often attacks on the roads, landmines as well. So many of these areas are still inaccessible for security reasons.
Nearly 4 in 10 African American children are living in poverty, while 58% of African American youth are now not employed. 2 million more Latinos are in poverty today than when President Obama took his oath of office less than 8 years ago. Another 14 million people have left the workforce entirely. Household incomes are down more than $4,000 since the year 2000. That's 16 years ago. Our trade deficit in goods reached nearly, think of this, our trade deficit is $800 billion. Yet, think of that. $800 billion. Last year alone, we're going to fix that. Big business, elite media, and major donors are lining up behind the campaign of my opponent because they know she will keep our rigged system in place. They are throwing money at her because they have total control over every single thing she does. She is their puppet, and they pull the strings. That is why Hillary Clinton's message is that things will never change, never ever. My message is that things have to change, and they have to change right now.
Donald Trump's RNC speech proved to be a rest stop, emboldened by truths presented to a country speeding down a highway to hell, replete with impending doom and a steep decline. Truths that are there for anyone to research on their own if they have the gumption.